You continue to pray, to wait, to look for signs. But sometimes, it's not God who's slow. It's you who's stuck. Without realizing it, out of fear, out of criteria, out of hurt, you could literally reject the right person, the one Allah has chosen, prepared, and approved for you. In this video, we're not just going to talk about love or marriage, we're going to talk about divine guidance, which you can no longer recognize. Prepare yourself, because what you're about to hear may make you rethink every decision, every refusal, every silence you've ever experienced. 1. What if you blocked what you had asked for so much? You raised your hands again and again. You sat on your mat, sometimes speechless, sometimes with tears in your eyes. You told Allah what you wanted, a sincere person, a soul aligned with yours, a love that would bring you closer to Him. You didn't just want someone. You wanted the one or the one God would have chosen for you. And then silence. Or maybe confusion. Faces pass by, opportunities arise, and you always leave alone, empty, uncertain. So you start praying again. You think the answer hasn't come yet. But have you ever considered that the answer is already there? That it may have already met your gaze? That you may have already seen it, already met it, but you've blocked it, rejected it, pushed aside, not violently, but gently, with a criterion, a word, a doubt, a no that you didn't even question. You asked for a blessing, but you judged it according to criteria the dunya taught you, not ones your soul recognizes. You see, Allah's mercy doesn't shout. It doesn't impose itself. It comes gently, like a breeze that crosses your daily life. But if your heart is closed, too attached to a specific image, you won't even feel it pass. Perhaps you've clung to an idea of happiness that was sold to you, a smile, a look, a way of speaking, a status. Perhaps you've made a personal dream a spiritual standard. You've confused what you deeply want with what you've learned to desire. And Allah, in His wisdom, may have given you something better, but different. And that's where many fall. They don't recognize Allah's gifts when they don't shine as expected. You prayed for someone who would bring you back to God, but perhaps He sent you someone who didn't have the right words, but who, through His peace, His humility, His modesty, would have brought you closer to Him quietly. You asked for a light, but you were expecting fireworks. So when Allah gave you a candle, you put it down, thinking it didn't shine enough. But the truth, it's that your vision has become too accustomed to the darkness. It's not that the other wasn't bright enough. It's that you had forgotten how to see with your heart. You protected yourself, yes, against pain, against illusion. But sometimes, by building these walls, you also lock away blessings. What you want, you won't recognize if you don't learn to see with something other than your fears, with something other than your wounded ego, with something other than your imagination. What if this person you've pushed aside or judged too quickly was exactly what your soul was calling for without you knowing it? What if the form you reject was the one your destiny always intended? Because Allah doesn't act to flatter your mental image. He acts to mend your heart. And sometimes the person who can heal that heart is unlike anyone you would have chosen for yourself. You prayed with sincerity. You begged with hope. But now, are you ready to receive with humility? Or will you continue to ask, while pushing away what you think you don't want when it's exactly what you need? You're not blocking the blessing because you're mean. You're blocking it because you no longer know how to trust in others, but especially in Allah. But in what you reject today, there may be the invisible hand of the one who knows you better than you know yourself. So look around you, come back to yourself, and ask yourself, have I really been ready to accept what I asked for so hard? 2. The silent story you may be living right now. She had never really seen him. He was there, often, silent but present. He didn't give grand speeches, didn't quote 1,000 authors, didn't post spiritual reminders all day long. He didn't seek attention, but he was constant. He observed, he listened, he prayed. She had criteria, a list, a dream, someone of a certain level, of a certain stature, someone with charisma, a palpable ambition, a clear direction, someone who, at first glance, would make her heart beat faster. And him, he had none of that. He had a calm gaze, a way of greeting with adab, a deep silence, a sincere but humbly hidden faith. She didn't dwell on him. She saw him the way you see things you quickly classify. Nice, but not for me. She prayed, again, for God to show her the right one. She wanted someone who would turn her life upside down, someone who would appear like a miracle, a revelation, a sacred fire. But what she didn't know is that perhaps Allah had already sent her a gentle source, not a burning fire, someone who wouldn't overwhelm her, but who would stabilize her, someone who wouldn't complete her, but calm her. Meanwhile, he prayed. He prayed for her, not with excessive hope, not with fantasy, but with silent respect, far from the need to convince or manipulate. O Allah, if it's her, bring light into her heart. And if it's not her, then gently close this door without hurting any of us. You see, these kinds of men or women exist. They don't make noise, they don't insist, but they are there, in your circle, in your daily life, maybe even in your unread messages. But their simplicity doesn't attract you, because you've been trained to look for what shines, not what heals, what impresses, not what purifies. She walked past him. She continued on her way. She said, "He's good, but there's something missing." And in her prayer, she continued to ask for a pious, gentle, respectful, protective man. But what she didn't see is that sometimes we ask for an answer that has already been shown to us. But since it doesn't match our vision, we reject it without even trying to question it. Maybe she simply needed to look with less expectation and more heart. 3. The filters that keep you from your destiny. You don't realize it anymore. But you're leaving behind a filter you didn't choose, but one that life imposed on you. A betrayal, a broken promise, once, twice, too many times. So you said to yourself, never again. And you began to observe people as potential dangers, to question every smile, to doubt every kind word. You're no longer looking for a heart. You're looking for the flaw. You no longer want to believe. You want to protect yourself. You move forward masked, reserved, distant. You don't refuse out of pride. You refuse out of fear, out of memory of pain, out of survival instinct. But what you forget is that this filter that keeps you from reliving hell also prevents you from tasting paradise. You've so armored your heart that even the light can no longer find an opening. Perhaps Allah sent you someone real, someone pure, sincere, patient, someone who didn't want to break in, but just knock gently and wait for you to open. But your heart has become a labyrinth, with invisible walls, logical traps, fears disguised as standards. You said, "Sabqa, I don't want to suffer." But sometimes that phrase becomes, "I don't want to feel anymore." And in this emotional anesthesia, you no longer discern what's true. You no longer recognize intentions. You judge too quickly. You distance yourself too soon. You fade away slowly. And mercy passes, but it slides off your walls. You think you've become wiser. But it's not always wisdom. Sometimes it's fear disguised as logic. It's not your heart that decides. It's your past that speaks for you. You observe, you scrutinize, you anticipate. You want to avoid mistakes. But by trying to filter everything, you also filter out sincerity. You reject what is simple, because simplicity seems suspect to you. You reject what is gentle, because gentle seems dangerous to you. You block out what is stable, because your soul only recognizes what is unstable. And Allah, He may send you clear signs, but you have become blind because of a pain that hasn't healed. You want a healthy person, but you still look with traumatized eyes. You want someone real, but you judge them by criteria forged by false people. And if Allah sends you light, but you close the curtains, you will remain in the shadows, believing it is night. You believe there is nothing, that no one is meant for you, but it's not always the absence of love. Sometimes it's the presence of an inner fortress that you yourself built, and to which you can no longer find the key. You want to feel safe, but you've defined this safety as feeling nothing, not getting attached, not believing in it, not getting your hopes up too quickly. But then, how can you welcome a person you refuse to hope for? How can you recognize a soul if you no longer even allow yourself to feel your own? Allah doesn't expect you to be perfect, but He expects you to be open, to be true. For the divine package, you refuse to unwrap imagine. One morning, you receive a package on your doorstep. No signature, no sender's name, just your first name, written gently by hand. The package is simple. No ribbon, no gold paper, no perfume, nothing eye-catching, nothing spectacular, just the essentials. And you walk past it. You look at it. You say to yourself, it's surely nothing important. You don't open it. You push it aside or you forget about it. But what you don't know is that this package contained an answer. Not to what your mind was repeating, but to what your soul was silently crying out for. Inside, not what you wanted, but what you didn't even know you needed. A stable heart, a gentle energy, a sincere gaze, a reassuring silence, a presence that doesn't shake you, but anchors you, who brings you back to Allah without grand words, who reminds you of who you are without judging you, someone who heals you without even being aware of it. But you didn't open it, because it didn't look like what you had envisioned. You wanted fireworks. Allah sent you a gentle flame. You were expecting an intense vibration. He offered you profound peace. And there's the trap. Because you believe the right person must impress you. But the souls sent by God aren't there to dazzle. They're there to repair. You believe you have to feel an immediate attraction. But sometimes, Allah's mercy comes in the form of neutrality, to protect you from obsession, to offer you clarity that emotion won't cloud. You want it to be shaken up. Allah sends you someone who slows you down. You are looking for a partner in passion. He sends you a companion who leads you back to Him. And if you don't unwrap this package, because it's not Instagrammable, because it doesn't have the voice, the style, or the height you imagined, you risk rejecting what has been precisely chosen for your healing. You think you choose your destiny, but sometimes, destiny is already there, placed before you, and you refuse to reach out. Not because you don't want love, but because you want it to have a certain shape, a certain intensity, a familiar taste. But Allah doesn't cook with your taste. He cooks with your healing. He wraps His gifts in discretion. Because damaged souls cannot always tolerate the obvious. What you call mundane, he perhaps calls blessed. What you label as too simple maybe is what would bring you back to your own truth. And you're still searching. Someone greater, deeper, more on your level. But tell me, what if it were you who wasn't yet at the level to recognize sacred simplicity? What if it were you who needed to strip yourself to see what has always been there? You want love. You want a soul who understands you, but you want it to come like in stories, with symbols, visible signs, a perfect setting. But most of Allah's messengers came without decoration. And yet, they carried truths that changed worlds. What if this person you've been neglecting was your silent sign? What if this lack of wow effect was precisely the proof that it's true? Because the things of God don't need noise. They just need a heart pure enough to listen. And if you continue to reject discrete packages, you risk spending your life waiting for a mirage, while rejecting the real rain falling before you.
5. And you, are you really ready? You say you want a pious person, but are you really ready to welcome a soul connected to God? Or are you just looking for a religious setting, someone who prays, who says the right words, while you still cling to habits that disconnect you? You want a love that's aligned. But your heart, is it aligned with what? With the memory of a wound? With the image of an ideal that you've constructed yourself? Or with what Allah truly wants for you? You say you want a blessed relationship, but are you ready to purify yourself for the blessing you're asking for? Or are you simply waiting for everything to come, without inner effort? You want someone stable. But is your soul still standing? Or is it still tossed about by ego, impatience, fears, the need for control? You want someone who soothes you, but are you capable of protecting another's peace? Or are you waiting to be saved, without preparing yourself to love healthily? What if the problem wasn't the absence of the one, but the absence of yourself in your truest state? The one you hide, the one you haven't yet awakened, the one who is ready to receive. Because God sends. He even sends often. But if you're not in a state of receiving, you'll miss everything. You'll reject what's good. You'll extinguish what's sweet. You'll damage what's pure. And you'll believe nothing is meant for you. But it's not that God didn't send anything. It's that your heart wasn't ready to welcome what He presented to you. You want a spiritual relationship. But do you live spiritually when no one is watching? When you're alone, do you still walk toward God? Or do you pretend until someone comes along and pushes you? You want someone who will lift you up. But are you capable of lifting someone else up? Not with words, but with your behavior, your consistency, your listening, your worship. You're looking for a deep love. But do you know yourself deeply? Or do you hope the other person will fill the gaps you still refuse to face? You want a sincere marriage. But are you yourself a sincere being? Not in your words, but in your choices, in your intention, in your inner discipline. You want to be recognized as a gift. But have you worked to become a gift for someone? Not a shiny object, not a seductive illusion, but a true heart, a soul ready to love for God, to endure for God, to build for God. Because you can pray to receive. But Allah first looks to see if you are capable of honoring what you ask for. What if the delay of your destiny was actually a delay of mercy? The time you need to become capable of loving without destroying, to receive without sabotaging, to welcome without fleeing. You ask for a miracle. But a miracle doesn't land on unstable ground. It settles on purified earth, a prepared soul, a heart that no longer confuses noise with truth. And you? Are you that heart? Or are you still hoping someone will come and fix you instead? You now know that sometimes what you're waiting for is already there. But your heart, your mind, or your past prevent it from entering. So take a moment. Breathe. Ask Allah not just to send you the right person, but above all, to open your eyes and prepare you to recognize them. And if this video spoke to you, it may be because you're one step closer to what you've been asking for. Share it with someone who's also looking for answers. Subscribe if you want to continue this path toward a guided, aligned life, fully connected to divine wisdom. And tell me in the comments, which part touched you the most or awakened you? Guidance is sometimes silent, but it always strikes when the heart is ready to listen. Be that heart.